Okay, everybody, we have a huge treat here. I'm so excited to welcome my friend and publicist, Kendra Riley. She is the owner of Dawning PR, and she has been a really great resource for Josie and me here at Evergreen Authors as we've talked to authors about publicity and how to hire a publicist and how to kind of navigate the waters of publicity when it comes to like getting your book attention. So Kendra has graciously allowed us to pick her brain for a little bit and have a conversation here. So super excited to have you. Thank you so much, Kendra, for joining
Yeah, thanks for having me.
us. Very happy to have you. Okay, so let's talk really generally about publicity. I want to just start off by saying that Josie and I, our first books came out over 10 years ago, right, Josie?
Yeah,
Okay,
sounds about
so
right.
over a decade ago, which in publishing terms is like a lifetime ago.
Mhm.
So when we talk about marketing efforts with authors, the things that we would recommend today are very different than the things that we would have recommended 10 years ago. So I would be really curious to hear, like from a publicity standpoint, how important is a publicist nowadays from your perspective? Equally, more or less, and just what's your feel of the landscape?
I think it's vital to any success, honestly. Getting your book or a review of your book or just anything in relation to your book or your expertise out there in the news is going to make potential readers trust you more. And it's going to be coming from these trusted third-party sources like a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal or your local paper or your local, morning show. But all of those things, the general public puts a lot of trust in the media. And so seeing that, oh, they do know what they're talking about because they've been featured on Good Morning Arizona or the New York Times. It's going to give you an edge over other authors who may be writing about similar topics.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like those publications that you're talking about, the morning talk shows, the radio shows, like people talk about those things as though they don't really exist anymore. They're not relevant anymore. Is that true in your opinion?
Not true, but I'll tell you why. So, a lot of our clients, their target demographic isn't going to be watching Good Morning Arizona, but they would still go on the show and then take that video clip and then put it on their social media and use some advertising dollars to target exactly who they want to see it. So it's still equally as important now as it was 10 years ago to have those opportunities because you can just reuse them and repost them in so many different ways digitally.
Yes, that Josie and I talk about that all the time when we work with authors. Like when you get a piece of publicity collateral that you can use and integrate into your marketing campaigns for the lifetime of your book, like you can recycle it as many times as you need to. Are you still
Exactly.
recycling material, Josie, for your books?
Well, oh yeah, so my book's about gratitude. So every October, November, fall, I always do another push. It's sort of like an evergreen content, my book. And so I'm able to keep recycling all my gratitude stuff every National Gratitude Month, Thanksgiving, all that kind of stuff. And when you said that, Kendra, I was like, oh, that's a genius idea. Like, because I've kind of like, oh, morning shows, whatever. But like, oh, to like actually reuse it and put ad dollars around it, like that's instant clout, I
Yep.
mean, even if people aren't seeing it in the moment, that really does give you I think it elevates your brand to have
Mhm.
that kind of content.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And we're always chasing the good content, right? Like there's only
Yeah,
so many
totally.
times you can go on social media and remind people that you wrote a book. Like you've got to give them something more and to see you in a different way to get
Hmm.
engaged in whatever it is that you're selling. So I love that. Thank you. Okay, so tell us when you work with authors, who are the ones that stand out for you? So when we talk about like the ideal client where you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to work with this person, tell us what they bring to the table.
I think it's more of a uniqueness, what makes your story different than all the other stories out there. Granted, I came into this industry because I love telling other people's stories. So I'm pretty intrigued by all of them. And we've handled so many different authors, whether it's, a 9/11 widow, to a local reporter who's sharing his memoir, to, just CEOs that want to write about their industry and be thought leaders. So we've done a little bit of everything in this space for authors. So I don't pigeonhole or pick a niche necessarily, because I feel like we can help everyone.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like if an author comes to you with a quality book, but they maybe don't have a huge platform, or this is like brand new, kind of deer in the headlights, coming to you like, help me, I don't know what I'm doing. Is that somebody you can help equally to the person who's coming to you with like a huge TikTok platform or a huge, some sort of like celebrity or the local celebrity status?
For sure. I mean, we can absolutely make recommendations and say, here's your checklist of things that you'll need to do on the social side in order to help, use these PR opportunities and get more out of them. So yeah, we can definitely work in whether we're managing their social media or just giving them tips, either way works.
You manage social media.
We do.
Oh, tell us more about that. Like, what does that look like for you? And what are some of the platforms that you're feeling like these are really good bang for the buck?
Yeah. So Facebook, even though people say it's going away, it's not. It's still the top, social media network out there. So Facebook is absolutely something you need, along with Instagram. Depending if, your subject, you might need LinkedIn if it's more business related. And then TikTok, it's there. It's climbing. I know a lot of people like to stay away from it, but any video that you use on Facebook and Instagram can just easily be put on TikTok so that you have that presence there, even if you're not engaging in it all the time. So it's just another opportunity, but we manage all of those for our clients.
Okay. Because Josie and I have been very scared of TikTok.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
just
it
overwhelming.
just
Like,
seems like a
Yeah.
full-time job,
yeah.
being a
Yeah.
TikToker if you're gonna
Right.
do it.
But
Right.
depending on the content, you could have one video that just, goes crazy and gets a ton of views.
Right.
You're good for a little while. So a lot of people aren't as frequently updating TikTok as they are like Instagram or Facebook. So it just
Mm,
depends, where your audience really is.
mhm.
I'm
That's
really glad
interesting.
you said the thing about Facebook too, because I feel like a lot of people, have been like, oh, poo-pooing Facebook, but I'm really into targeted advertising, and Facebook is still just incredible for advertising opportunities. And even people who aren't on Facebook, a lot of them are on there for the groups or for marketplace or for, you know what I mean? It's still because their relatives are all there. I mean, I'm just saying like it's still a
Yeah.
place that people, you almost have to be there
Yeah.
for a lot of
Mhm.
reasons,
Yeah. And on
Yeah.
that note, Facebook and Instagram, like the meta world, unless you're putting ad dollars behind your social media, only 10% of the people that follow you are actually going to see your posts. So,
Hmm.
but the
Hmm.
good thing about that is it's the cheapest advertising out there.
Right.
So, it's worth
For
doing, even
sure.
20
For
bucks here or
sure.
there, it'll make a difference.
Mm-hmm. And that
Agreed.
you were talking about like providing a checklist for authors. So authors are always asking us for like, what's the checklist for making like a bestseller? You know what I mean? Like if we could provide that, we would happily do it, right? It's
Hmm.
just so dependent on the author and their definition of what success is and what they're actually looking for. But you have checklists as part of your DIY kit that you made. That's like,
Mhm.
these are the things that you need to have in place. Is that correct?
Right. So yeah, here are the, 5, 7 things that you need to have done before you're even reaching out to a reporter about your book.
Mm.
So, that's having a media kit, having your bio written, having headshots or photos of you and your book in a Dropbox folder. So things like that, you just
Mm.
need to be organized and ready, because you don't want to approach a reporter and then they'll ask you, oh, well, do you have photos? Do you have this? What's your ISBN number? And you're just completely unorganized. And then you go back to them and it might be too late and that opportunity is gone. So you need to be prepared.
Okay. Tell us more about that because we've been
Yeah.
saying this for a long time that working with a publicist or working with publicity in general is this very careful science of perfect timing. So tell us what your timing kind of looks like when you're working with authors specifically. Like you want to see them before the book comes out or the week it comes out or after it comes out?
Yeah, absolutely want to see them at least a month or two before their book comes out so we can get the press release together, get all of that entire checklist that I mentioned. We can do all those things for the author as well. But of course, our DIY PR program tells you how to kind of do it yourself too. But we like to have that stuff prepared ahead of time and then start reaching out to media the month before the book is released. Then we can ask them, here's details on the book. Let me know if you want to review it. We'll send you a copy. So we like to have those yeses in place before the actual launch of the book.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's hard too, because it's like everything is always happening at once. Like people, when authors get to the stage where their book is finally available on Amazon, what they really want to do is just sit back and let the royalty checks come in, right? But really that's when the work starts. And so that's why it's part of our education for authors of just making them understand like the cycle of how this works. And it does take time. And the more time you have, the more precise and the more beautiful you can make all of those things for them.
Right. We have had authors come to us, not long after their book was released, still needing help. Whether it's like, okay, I have a couple dates for a book tour scheduled, but that's it. Like, can you help me? So yes, we can still help you. But for authors, they need to realize the sooner the better. So the moment your book is released, you need to have news out there going out to all the media. If you come to me a couple months later, some reporters might be like, well, that was released 3 months ago, so it's old news.
That's really interesting. So how do you feel about, because we've worked with lots of authors who have books that are timely for whatever reason. Maybe it's a book on gratitude that comes out in November, or, a book for Mother's Day, or whatever the case may be. Would it be ideal for you to work with somebody who maybe maybe their book came out last year, but they want to like hop on any of like the timely stuff that's happening around an event around their book, or even if they could be a speaker around a certain current event that's happening? Do you help with that sort of thing too?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one way that even if your book was released, a year ago or however long ago, you can jump on a trend that's happening, or whether it's a national holiday or, Pancake Day and you have a book about pancake recipes, whatever the case might be,
Yes.
you can jump on those trends and get included in roundups and things like that.
How quickly does it move? Like, say I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I'm just so curious. Like, let's say you were to send out a press release this morning, and somebody were to reach back out to you and be like, oh, I am interested. Yeah, I'd love to see a copy of this book. Like, is there a huge sense of urgency on your part to get it to them ASAP, or do you kind of weigh it based on the situation?
Yes. So a lot of times, especially if authors, have a lot going on, we ask for a case of books. And so we have them on hand. So then when reporters are like, yes, I want the book, we can get it out to them overnight, or, 2-day delivery, whatever the case might be, because they might just forget about it if it takes too long, and then they'll lose interest. So
For sure. Do they still want physical books, or is a PDF okay?
I mean, a lot of them prefer the physical books. And I think that just goes into the fact that they're all journalists and they appreciate the hard copy of the newspaper and the hard copy of the magazine. And all of those people still like to have those things rather than being completely digital. So
yeah,
it depends on the reporter, but largely they want a physical copy.
There's nothing like feeling the actual book in your hands to know if it's like the right, there's just something energetically that happens. And I agree. I just recently went to a conference where they were talking about how print book sales are actually trending up right now, which is, kind of went down for a while during COVID, and now it's trending back up. And I think that from a printing perspective and a publishing perspective, like authors are getting so creative about how they present their material, because, when we're living in this age of AI and every book can be kind of, done the same via Amazon. But if you can get creative with your presentation, that's just another edge that you might have.
I've heard the reason that printing has gotten popular again is because of TikTok, Instagram, whatever, people wanting to show their books, like
Oh,
show what book they're, or show their shelves. It's a whole trend to
Gotcha.
show your
Well, that's
book.
a positive trend from
A
TikTok. I
uh,
like it.
total
I'll take
positive
it.
trend. I love it.
I will totally take it. You want to be on that positive side of TikTok, right? That's
Right.
that's what you're looking
Exactly.
for.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so in terms of, whenever authors hire a publicist like yourself, they would hire you on retainer for a certain amount of time. Can you explain what that would mean?
Yeah. So usually it's a monthly retainer. It's just say, okay, we're going to do some national press for your book for a period of 3 months at 10 grand a month. When we get you placed in a Wall Street Journal or whatever the case might be, there's no extra fee on top of that. You're simply just paying a one-time fee for our relationships that we already have with all of these reporters and media outlets.
Okay. What's your ideal time that you work with an author? I'm super curious about your answer.
I would say 3 months for sure
Yeah.
is a great starting point. Some, have more and might need more. It depends on the situation, the
Mhm,
book. Like you said, if they already are kind of an influencer online,
mhm.
they might have more longevity than someone who's, lesser known. So it depends on, there's a few different factors that go into it, but I would say absolutely 3 months.
Okay. That's what we've been telling people, Josie. I feel very validated. Like 3 months, if you're going
Yeah.
to hire a publicist, a 3-month retainer is a good amount of
Hmm.
time to start with, and then you kind of revisit because it is a huge investment. Like, you just quoted $10,000 a month. That's a huge investment. So if you're
Yeah.
going to do that, you want to partner with somebody you trust, obviously, but a company where you know that they are going to use that time really, really wisely. So even that short amount of time.
Right.
What
And
would
that's for
you?
national. And I think,
Oh,
local, if
okay.
you're just doing statewide press, it's going to be less than that.
Hmm.
So it depends on what you need
Oh,
for
I
sure.
see. So you
Um,
ask for that first. Like, are you looking for national coverage? Are you looking for local coverage?
right.
Okay,
Yeah. And so we'll put a proposal together and send it to the author with our recommendations so they can see like the packages and the pricing and what's available and pick whatever they're comfortable with.
sure.
But back to the 3 month retainer option, I think another reason that the 3 month retainer is so critical is because some media work that far out. So if you want your book in a magazine, those publishers are working 3 months in advance. So, right now it's February and April issues are already closed. Like they're on to May. So
Right.
that's something to keep in mind.
Right. Absolutely. And that's hard for, especially indie authors. That's really hard because we are used to doing it ourselves. We get the instant gratification, like we're used to things moving faster. So I know that that's always a hard pill to swallow.
Well, that's my question too, because I think a lot of indie authors feel like, well, I do everything myself anyways, like I can do my PR myself. I could get booked on XYZ show, whatever. Um, is that something that people can do on their own? I mean, do people do that successfully, or do you feel like this is where a PR professional like yourself comes in?
I mean, they do. There are opportunities to do that. And that's what we teach in our DIY PR program is this is how you can successfully get your own press. But I think one of the ways is, they're talking about themselves and they're pitching themselves. And it's always better to have someone else talking about you rather than yourself.
Right,
So say
right.
you're just, you know, Joe Smith, the author, well, you might want to make another email address for yourself from a team member. So your team member is the one sharing about your book. It's not coming directly from you.
Sure.
I'll say this, when I was professionally speaking, I hired a virtual assistant for a while to be my person to book my speaking gigs. And I booked so many more speaking gigs when somebody else was
Mhm.
doing it for me and sort of like being my hype person. It is amazing to have somebody else being your PR representative. I have to say, it's a game changer and it really makes a difference, especially if you're going to do this as your career, as an author. I think it's like essential to have some kind of support um, doing it for you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the angle, like the voice is different. So I think one
Mhm.
of the things we've found, like the biggest challenge working with authors can be that they're really good writers because they've written a book and they know how to write. But when you're writing to a reporter, it's different than writing to somebody about, telling a story about, whatever your memoir is about or whatever the series that you've written. It's a different voice. It's almost like a different craft, so to speak. So it's
Mhm.
nice to have somebody else's voice acting on your behalf. So it really kind of makes the creativity of your work stand out too. So, you can do it yourself. And I do think that your DIY course can like teach people how to do that. But this is where like the investment in a publicist can be really helpful to authors and save them a ton of time and energy and just kind of let a pro handle that.
And if they do hire us, on a monthly retainer, one of the benefits of doing that is some of these, TV shows, local morning shows, whatever the case might be, they're going to trust that author more that they hired a PR agency because they'll
Mhm.
know that we already gave them tips on how to speak on camera, what to wear on camera, and we've prepared them with, potential Q&A ahead of time.
Mhm.
So they're much more likely to bring them on a show knowing that they hired a professional to prep them ahead of time.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like I'm personally like really curious to hear more about the DIY because I know there's going to be authors who are going to be like, okay, I can't afford to have like a full-time PR professional every month, even though I would love it, I need it, like tell us about your DIY program because this sounds like a great option for those authors.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a 12-page guidebook along with 10 plus templates for press releases, email pitches, you name it. And then a 1 hour webinar with me where I kind of walk you through everything. So we talk about what is the difference between PR and advertising and what things do I need to have ready? Who are my key target demographics? What are my top 3 key messages that I want to get across to the general public? Um, what are my demos reading? Where are they getting their news? So that would help me, craft your media list. And then I'll go through and say, okay, let's look at one of these outlets, go to their website. This is where you go to find the reporter's email that you can then craft your media list from. Then we go through and have an annual PR plan. So I'll help you go through that and write out some key things to help you kind of craft what your PR plan should be. And then I share some other websites as well that anyone can go to, that reporters throughout the nation and globally too actually go on and say, I'm writing a story about this. I need some sources. And they can look and be like, oh, wow, that's my area of expertise. I'm going to respond. So there are a couple of websites out there like that that are free to join where you could easily get some great press.
Oh, that's awesome.
We go through all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would just say like that 1 hour webinar with you to talk like personally
Hmm.
about your book would be like worth the cost of the DIY kit because it's like it's always the implementation of it. And like we've said so many times, like the every book is so special. Every author's like idea of success is very different. Like it's some people are just like straight up book sales. Some people want to like pitch themselves as a speaker. Some authors like they just really want to get on their local morning show and that is like the be all end all. And some people will not rest until they're on Oprah's couch and that is okay. Like, just as long as you have somebody that's guiding you toward your definition of
Yeah.
whatever success is for your book.
Mhm.
What would you say is like the thing that you do for authors that they need the most help on that they might not realize they need the most help on? Like what sort of value do you provide that like people it's like this is the number one thing that authors are missing out on doing it
I think
themselves?
it's the prep to look professional when you're approaching reporters.
Mm,
So having a
Mm.
well-done media kit
mhm.
that has a quick synopsis about your book, your bio, your topics and areas of expertise, your ISBN numbers that they need. So having a professionally done media kit can make a big difference and just make you look that much more trustworthy and reliable in the eyes of the media. So I think something like that. And I show that too in the webinar, examples of what, a media kit for an author would look like and include, so then they could, go on Canva and create one themselves. That's super easy. Or they can hire us and we'll do it for them too. But
For sure. Yeah. Do you recommend that the media kit live on their website, like public for everybody, or it's something that they keep to themselves and share with reporters as necessary?
I think it can be public, like posted on the website, as long as maybe there's like a media section or a news, or in your About Us section, you could say, for media, download our, kit here. So it just depends on who you're trying to reach, but I mean, there's no harm in making it available.
Sure.
A lot of times the PDF file can be too large, so you want to have a Dropbox link for that, so you can just easily send it.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. I feel good about that. I feel very validated by everything that you're saying. So I feel this is really good. Okay. So all the talk in the publishing world right now is around AI. And so I'm really curious, like, yeah, I mean, you mentioned Canva, which is like our favorite tool ever. We literally live in Canva all the time. It's amazing. But, kind of looking more towards like AI tools and things that are out there now, like, are you integrating any of those tools into Publicity? Do you recommend that authors think about AI and integrating it in this way? Like, love to hear your thoughts on that.
For PR, I recommend it's minimal. Journalists are more against AI than they are for it. They can spot an AI generated email at, like no other. I've gotten some myself, and as someone who writes every day for a living, telling other people's story, I can tell right away when there's AI in an email, and it bugs me to no end.
Absolutely. Same.
And I would think that authors, they're writers anyway. I feel like they should have 100% confidence that they can write a great email and make it sound good. I would more use AI for like their social media posts, things like that, or their e-newsletter content, or a blog post maybe, but always edit it. Never just take it as it is.
Yes, always. I mean, it's so sophisticated that I think sometimes people get like really overwhelmed by what it can do. It's like that quote in Jurassic Park, like we never asked like if we could, but should we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know that quote I'm talking about? So it's like, yes, it's like proceed with caution
For sure.
with using AI. I feel excited about the idea or like the possibilities there, especially when it comes to teaching authors some of the just sort of the structural pieces around these written materials. Like, for example, if you were to go into ChatGPT and say, write me a press release for my science fiction book, right? Probably the details of the press release are going to be not great and it's not going to look, but from a structural standpoint, somebody who's an author who's never looked at a press release before could at least be like, oh, that's interesting. All right. I didn't know that that's how you would organize it. And from a creative aspect, as somebody who's written a lot of business books for people, like just understanding what the structure of a book can look like can be really helpful to just keep it going. So I don't know.
And
Love
even
hate
I
relationship.
would not even rely to look at a press release template, which we provide too, but I would just Google press release and then go to the images tab and a bunch will pop up. So you'll see like what the professional format should look like. Because I don't know if AI would give it to you properly.
Sure. Yes. Check your work. Check your
Yeah.
work using Google
Yeah.
and hopefully using Kendra. She would be the ideal person to check your work. That's awesome. All right. So, do you feel like confident about the future of Publicity, given all of like the moving parts of, how we're communicating with each other, all the different social media, all the changes, like Twitter doesn't exist anymore. It's something totally separate. Like, given all of these constant changes, like what is your overall feeling of how Publicity is moving or trending?
I think it's still trending upward for sure. The move to digital has only given us more opportunities for press, which is great. I mean, it helps your SEO as well. So having like all these podcasts that are out, is just another way of getting the word out about your book and what you're doing. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. Another benefit of this kind of change into like less print and more digital is staffing has gone down for a lot of media outlets. And so they're really relying more heavily on PR firms to help provide them with story ideas. So
That's
that's
really
been
interesting.
a nice benefit
Interesting.
for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually didn't think about it that way, but that makes total sense.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the authors we work with they're approached by, their local paper and they'll say, write us a story about this. That makes perfect sense. Awesome. Josie, do you have any follow-up questions here?
I don't. This was wonderful.
I'm super
Super
inspired.
helpful.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
super inspired. I hired a publicist for my first book when it came out like 10 years ago. And just like a total tangential story. She was really great. She got me into a bunch of local publications. But one of the things that I tell people all the time is that she ended up getting me connected to a conference that I didn't even know existed. She sent, I will never forget, she sent me an email and she's like, hey, would you be interested in this conference? I think I want to pitch you for it. And I was like, I've never heard of it. And it ended up being a conference that I attended for at least the next 4 or 5 years as a speaker, selling books there, making these connections that I still have to this day. And so this is where, we talk about this a lot at Evergreen Authors, but we really encourage authors to look at their success beyond book sales, because your success can be kind of manifested in bigger and better ways. And I really owe a lot to that publicist just for that one little nugget she gave me. She was certainly worth the price just for that. So
absolutely. You never know what opportunities are out there or who's reading the newspaper that talks about your book. There's, yeah.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. All right. How can
Yeah.
people best get a hold of you to either talk to you about hiring you on retainer or getting a hold of this DIY course that you have?
You can just go to our website, dawningpr.com. That's DAWNINGPR.com. Or you can email me, Kendra@dawningpr.com.
Okay, perfect. And we'll follow up here. We'll make sure all of our authors are linked to what you do. Thank you so much
Yes.
for your
Thank
time.
you.
You are
Thank
so
you.
Thank you
awesome.
all.
I am very, very inspired. All right. Bye guys. Have a great day.
Bye.